When it comes to what do you want, it can seem very basic, but it can actually be very complicated if you are not willing to be honest with yourself about what you want and you've been settling for less than you deserve. Welcome to a brand new episode of On My Manifesting Mind with your host, Sudanë Firestar. I am so excited that you are here today, rocking out with me on another Thursday morning. For today's episode, we're going back to basics when it comes to law of attraction and manifestation. So, the topic of today's episode is what do you want? And it seems simple, but it can be misleading. But before we get into it, your girl is having a no makeup moment because it is past my bedtime. Like, if I really did have a bedtime, it really would be past my bedtime. I ought to get a bedtime. I've done my whole bedtime moisturizing routine with my Fenty Skin. If you have not used Fenty Skin, it is incredible. Not a sponsored element of this podcast, but today's podcast is sponsored by my podcasting course, Audacious Audio, which is now open for enrollment. And actually, as a part of the pre-work for the course, I have included the Next Level Now Visionary Masterclass. And in that masterclass, I dive deep into this topic about what do you want? And I'm going to be sharing a bit of that with you here today. But if you are interested in enrolling in the course, I'm going to include the link in the show notes. In the course, we dive deep into your mindset to build your confidence as a podcaster, along with all of the practical details that you need to know to create a fantastic podcast. So again, the link is in the show notes. Now let's get into it. So as I said before, when it comes to what do you want, it can seem very basic, but it can actually be very complicated if you are not willing to be honest with yourself about what you want and you've been settling for less than you deserve. When you're a child, you have this childlike wonder and nothing is off limits for you because the adults in your life oftentimes tell you that anything is possible. If you say, hey, I want to be an astronaut, no one tells you you can't do that or be that, right? People always say, of course you can be an astronaut. You can do anything you want. You can be anything you want to be. But when you become an adult, then, you start to see all of these limitations that either people place on you or that you begin to place on yourself based on your observations about life and what you see is possible for other people in your life, and also based upon your own lived experiences and how you experience the world. But that's what makes it so much more complicated. And in these moments, you can think to yourself, what would the 3-year-old version of me do? Or what would I want? Because the 3-year-old version of you just is so creative and innovative and, is not yet jaded by the world. But the point is, regardless of whatever happened to you that told you can't have what you want, you now have a choice to see things differently and you can have the things that you desire to have. You can be whatever it is you want to be. It is just a matter of you changing your mind and seeing things differently in your life. And another thing to consider is that you oftentimes will not admit to yourself what it is you truly want because you don't believe that you can have it. As I said, when you were a child, you had that belief. Your imagination was strong. But once you became an adult, that kind of dissipated and it went away a little bit, right? So you kind of lack that belief. It's hard for you to see the vision. And in addition to that, you may also have a fear of being judged. Like, what would someone think if I say that that's what I really want? What would people think if I change my mind? you know, Maybe people will think that's silly, or maybe people will think that it's impossible. So I just won't admit it to myself, right? These are some of the thoughts that can run through your mind. We're going to change all of that right now because nothing is impossible for you. Okay. And of course, to drive this point home even further, I'm going to share 3 examples with you from my own life. The first one is about my career. So, as you can see here, talking about law of attraction and manifestation and being a full-time entrepreneur is super important to me. But for a long time, I wouldn't admit that, especially because I went through all of this hard work and got a PhD in school psychology. So it's like, when someone from the outside looks in and sees that, it looks kind of crazy. But the truth is that nothing is ever wasted. I do not believe that my degree in school psychology wasn't worth it or that it was a waste. I mean, there are so many benefits that I got from it. So, if you feel like you are at a crossroads and there's something that you want to change, maybe it's your career, but you feel like other people are going to think you're out of your daggone mind if you admit it, it really is way more important for you to just admit that that's what you want because then your power is going to be so much stronger. Your power to manifest is going to be so much stronger. Because for a long time, I wouldn't admit to anyone else that I really wanted to be a full-time entrepreneur. I kept it to myself. And so then instead of just putting all of my heart and soul and energy into becoming a full-time entrepreneur and being able to do this work with my full heart and becoming a manifestation and mindset coach full time and creating wonderful courses, and so many different cool, interesting offers. Instead, what I did was I told people, oh, I just want to look for a job, a school psych job that's closer to home, or oh, I'm just going to look for a school psych job where I can work remotely so that I can spend more time at home and I'll have more time to, be the mom that I want to be and to be with my daughter. All things that are actually true, but as a full-time entrepreneur, I would have even more freedom, more flexibility, be even more location independent, and be able to give more of myself to the things that I really love, including spending more time with my child, right? But for a long time, I wouldn't tell anybody that. And instead, I really did go look for school psych jobs closer to home or look for school psych jobs that were remote. And honestly, unfortunately, like what I found was kind of disappointing, or I hit a lot of obstacles and roadblocks to making that happen because that's not what was really meant for me. And it was just an example of me settling because I felt like what I wanted didn't make sense and like it wouldn't make sense to other people and it would look kind of nutty or irresponsible. But then I was taking away my energy, my attention. I was splitting it rather, right? Because I put a lot of time and energy into job searching and job hunting, and it didn't yield the results that I really wanted. But this is the year for me to manifest becoming a full-time entrepreneur, or at a minimum, being able to fully support my family, myself, my daughter as a full-time entrepreneur, doing the things that I love. And so this is the year where I'm putting my all into it and I'm not splitting my energy. The next example is about my desire for the expat lifestyle and world schooling my daughter. So during the pandemic, I really started to get this itch to move abroad. And ever since I studied abroad in Spain when I was in college for a year, my junior year of college, I have always wanted to live abroad again. But life happens and time passes, and I didn't really make a plan to make that happen. But during the pandemic, when I had more time to focus and look into it, I did do some additional research on what it would be like to live abroad and some alternative options for where I could live. But then again, I pivoted and I decided to focus on becoming a mom. And then that became my major priority during the pandemic. But, fast forward a bit, I was telling one of my dear friends about the fact that I wanted to world school my daughter. And this post, like this account, started to pop up on social media with this mom and, her husband and her daughter, and they had moved to Greece. Her name is Kara, and they had moved to Greece as a family, and they were doing world schooling with their child this through this program called Boundless Life. And so I was just blown away, and I still follow her because her content is gorgeous. So if you want to go follow her, go follow her. It's incredible if you're interested in world schooling or if you're just interested in what it takes to move abroad. But I also got really deep down in my thoughts about the how. And when it comes to manifestation, you cannot focus on the how. You have to focus on the what, focus on the why, right? And focus on the feeling, becoming an energetic match for what you want. But I was thinking a lot about the how. And then also, again, going back to my school psych job, it just kind of felt like, well, how am I going to make that happen? How am I going to move abroad with my school psych job? Like, how am I going to break that to other people? It just has seemed overly complicated and kind of impossible, even though nothing is impossible. And I know that it is very possible for me to move to Greece if I wanted to with my daughter. And even speaking about it now here on the podcast makes it even more powerful and more potent. So if there's ever anything that you desire to do, talk about it, share it, be open with other people about it, because opportunities are going to present themselves to you for you to get closer to achieving your goal, for you to get closer to achieving your manifestation. Anyway, so, I would say it here and there in a casual way, but then recently I had a conversation with my supervisor at work, and we're talking about moving, and I happen to just come out with it and share that I'm interested in living abroad and that I want to world school my daughter. He said to me, he's like, you know what? Yeah, like if that's what you really want to do, do it. Do it before it's too late. He was very supportive and was even trying to brainstorm ideas for how I could still kind of keep my position, in the schools where I work or within the education system in which I currently work. But he was just trying to come up with ideas about how I can make that happen. He's like, yeah, of course we don't want to lose you, but yeah, go ahead and do that. Right? So he was incredibly supportive, and that made it even more exciting for me to dream big. So share it with other people. And even if it seems impossible, you just never know what could happen, who could show up for you, who could support you. So dream bigger. Dream bigger and be honest with yourself about what you want and be honest with other people in your life about what you want. The last example I have here for you is about the podcast, which I'm obviously very excited about, so all in on, except I started to compartmentalize things, right? I'm already like, what is this, episode 27, 27 episodes in. And do you know that I really have not shared that I have a podcast with anyone at my job? I had not told anyone until last week. Last week, I told one of my colleagues, and she was like, "What? You have a podcast?" And she was like, "Well, how do I find it? Where are the links?" And then yesterday she sent me a text message saying she listened to the podcast and that she loved it and that she believes in manifestation and positive energy and that she's going to tell her daughter about the podcast and recommend it to her. So if you are wanting to grow something, right? You have a vision for where you could go and you want your manifestation to take off. You want to build this dream, really share it with other people. As I said before with the last example, you never know who would support you, who would show up. But you have to believe in your dream. You have to be willing to talk about it. You have to be willing to admit it. You have to be willing to be honest about what it is you truly want. Don't hide it from anyone, because you're doing yourself a disservice and you're making it so much harder for you to manifest what it is you desire to manifest. So, in sum, the key points are these. When you don't admit what you truly want, you split your time, energy, and attention. You make it so much harder for yourself to manifest the desires of your heart. So, step one is just to admit it. Admit it to yourself first and believe that you can have it. And the second key point is to admit what you want and desire to other people around you. And you can just start with the people that you trust the most. But the truth is that you never know who's going to be a kindred spirit. You never know who's going to be on your side and support you and to help you achieve your dream. Because oftentimes the universe is going to send you guidance. The universe is going to send you the assistance that you need to achieve your desired manifestations. But that can also come from other people, the people in your network. So if you only keep it to yourself, again, you're making it so much harder for you to manifest the desires of your heart. So, what do you want? If no one would judge you, If nothing bad would happen, what would you want? What would you be willing to admit to yourself? What would you be willing to confess to the other people in your life? And that's what I have for you today, my dear. And if you're not already following or subscribed to the podcast, follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. You can also follow me on Instagram. I'm at Sudanë Firestar on Instagram. And if you are loving these podcast episodes, I am now offering exclusive episodes of On My Manifesting Mind. So you can become a subscriber to get audio drops on a weekly basis where I actually dive deeper into these topics, but focus primarily on business and how to apply mindsets and your manifestation practices to grow your business and your brand. So if you are a new or an aspiring entrepreneur or business owner, this is for you. And so you can also get the link in the show notes to become a subscriber. And I love you. And until next time, have a wonderful day and have a wonderful week and weekend.